is, and then Kami, I'll let you introduce our guest. How's that? I'll just go ahead and say that we are Your Women's Fund Miami-Dade. We have some amazing, I see one of our board members here, Denise Kaye, our board secretary. Thank you so much for being here, and a few of our team members. So thanks so much. Tish Mindingal, thank you so much as committee member, our legislative and advocacy committee. Thank you, each and every one of you who are here today. That's a 4-month-old puppy, sorry. Your Women's Fund has 4 basic pillars. We know that women and girls cannot truly thrive in Miami-Dade or anywhere if they don't have economic mobility, health and well-being, are free from violence, and see themselves capable of having access to leadership or being leaders themselves. Those are 4 critical pillars. And we have 4 key programs. We convene with impact collaboratives. We do public awareness campaigns, which include the Stop Sex Trafficking campaign of the Miami Super Bowl host committee, the Hey Dad, why are you still paying women less economic mobility campaign, the Your Vote Equals Your Power campaign that we did with the League of Women Voters a couple of years ago, and other supporters. And we also have an incredible new program. It's the Gender Equity Dashboard that Viviana Alvaro Pacheco spearheads here within our team, which shows, we invite you all to come to our website and look at why equity, some of the facts between equity and key indicators here in Miami-Dade. And last but not least, we're thrilled to have returned to our core program of grant making. And right now we're looking at systems that don't work, often because they weren't designed with valuing work that has often been considered women's work in our society, which is often the most important work, like early child education. So we are thrilled to have you all today. We have some incredible committees, and we have this incredible volunteer core, which is the impact, who are the impact agents that Kami organizes for us. So with that, Kami, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our guest.
Of course. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Like Maria said, we have Mika, who is the Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade County, today with us, and she'll be informing us on how to decode our ballot and become informed voters. So Mika, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everybody. I am very excited to be here with you all today to decode our 2022 ballot. I'm just going to share my presentation with you all. Let me just get this set up.
I have mine right here, by the way. I'm like, thank goodness for you. I want to get it sent in.
Yeah, some of the language is very confusing. I just want to make sure you guys can see the right screen. Do you see a presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right. All right, so decoding the ballot 2022 general election, and this decoding the ballot presentation is brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade County. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend democracy, and our vision is a democracy by the people, for the people, all of the people. You know, inclusion is very important to us, and so our mission is to provide access and education to all people who are, you know, 18 years of age and over, and they're citizens of the United States, or they're eligible to vote, you know, through whichever mechanism. We want to make sure they have the education and the access to do so without any type of pressure or prosecution from any outside group. So I'm just going to introduce the League briefly. We're a nonpartisan national organization, and we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties. In 1920, 6 months before the ratification of the 19th Amendment, the League was formed to provide the education and experience the public needed to assure success of democracy. Today, Florida has 29 local League chapters, and 20% of those members are men. It's not just women. We are an inclusive organization, and we love that, you know, men also are a part of it. So what is on your ballot? All right, so at the federal level, it's all U.S. House of Representatives seats and the U.S. Senate seat that this year Marco Rubio is up for. The seat that was occupied by Senator Marco Rubio is up for election. The 28 U.S. representatives from Florida serve 2-year terms, with all 28 up for election. At the state level, we have the governor and cabinet, all state Senate seats, all state House of Representatives, and 3 Florida constitutional amendments, which we'll go over later in the presentation. And then at the local level, 2 county commissioners, 17 municipal races, 2 county referendums, which we'll also go over later, and a school board referendum. So let's talk a little bit more about at the federal level. The U.S. House of Representatives, each representative goes into it, they do a 2-year term. All 28 U.S. representatives are up for re-election. They originate revenue bills, taxes, that type of thing, and initiate impeachment proceedings. For U.S. senators, it's a 6-year term, 2 from each state, only 1 up for re-election this year. They confirm presidential appointments at the executive and judicial levels, and they ratify treaties. So federal legislators oversee immigration law, bankruptcy laws, Social Security laws, civil rights laws, patent and copyright laws, and federal criminal laws. The governor, they undergo a 4-year term with a 2-term limit, so that's a total of 8 possible years they can be in power. They are the chief executive of Florida, the chairman of the Florida cabinet, and they're able to execute laws, suggest new legislation, appoint Secretary of State and Commissioner of Education. They can call out the state militia when needed. They deliver the state of the state address, and qualifications for the office of governor are they must be 30 years old, must be a resident and a registered voter of Florida for at least 7 years. So the Attorney General, that is the Chief Financial Officer, that is a part of the cabinet, oversees accounting and auditing, monitors investment of state funds, insurance agents and agencies, workers' compensation, and they manage the deferred compensation program. The Attorney General, the chief legal officer, defends the state, represents the people of Florida, protects Florida consumers from fraud, and defends the constitutionality of statutes. The Commissioner of Agriculture oversees farming and food industries, regulates consumer services, and oversees gun licenses. And just to give you a little more background information on the Florida cabinet, let's see. The cabinet offices of Secretary of State and Commissioner of Education are appointed offices, and their respective agencies become the responsibility of the governor. Did anybody have a question? Okay, I'll move on then. Thank you. All right, so legislative, the Florida representatives and Senate. They pass state legislation, levy state taxes, regulate ownership of personal property such as real estate and motor vehicles, education of citizens and citizens' health and welfare. They develop the state budget, conduct investigations, propose amendments to state constitution, conduct elections, oversee voting and redistricting, and uphold or override the governor's veto. The Florida legislature is a part-time body. It's bicameral, consists of 2 bodies, the Senate and the House. Meets for 60-day regular sessions annually, legislative sessions in odd numbered years starting in March. Both the Florida House of Representatives and the Senate are responsible for the things I just mentioned. Florida House of Representatives, 2-year term, 8-year term limits. All 120 state reps are up for re-election. Florida Senator, 4-year term, 8-year term limit. All 40 state senators are up for re-election this year. Each Florida House member represents about 133 residents, and the Florida House alone has the power to impeach state officials. Now at the county level, we have the county commissioners, and they provide major metropolitan services for all county residents: public transportation, airport and seaport, water and sewer, solid waste disposal, garbage and trash collection, property assessment / tax collection, public safety, and planning and zoning enforcement. And at the municipal level, mayor, the official head of the city, liaison between county, state, and federal officials. They administer and carry out policies.
Miss Jeanette.
Hire and fire city employees, prepare the annual budget, oversee local police, fire, and housing departments. And council members / commissioners pass ordinances and resolutions, approve building projects, regulate zoning laws, establish tax rates, approve annual budget, and regulate business activities. Mayors are bestowed varying degrees of responsibility and authority across the nation, especially depending on the city's form of government. You know, there are some mayors that are considered weak mayors because they don't have as much power to oversee things, and then some that are considered strong mayors. And again, that depends heavily on the municipality. So judicial merit retention. The process. The governor appoints new justices from the Judicial Nominating Committee. After appointed, voters decide yes or no for the judge to remain in office. A judge has first merit retention vote 1 year after their first appointment. If they are retained, they serve a 6-year term, and then it goes before voters again, so they're re-voted on. If not retained, the governor replaces the judge. So moving on to the ballot question, there are 3 Florida constitutional amendments. There are 2 county referendums, and there is a school board referendum. So how to amend the Florida's Constitution? It can be done by the legislator, Citizens Initiative, Constitution Revision Commission, the CRC, or Taxation and Budget Reform Commission. These amendments were proposed by the legislator, all of them, and proposal by the legislator requires 3 out of 5 approval by both chambers. If you want a little more information on all of this, website for full text of amendment proposals, and I'll put it in the chat at the end, it's dos.elections.myflorida.com, and you just search 2022 amendments in the search box. A citizens initiative, Florida is one of the few states that has a pathway for direct democracy of citizens crafting constitutional law by citizens initiative. So this is the one way an amendment can be proposed. And here are, I'll start with the constitutional amendments first. So there is an amendment to limit on increased property assessments for flood improvements. So a yes vote means the legislature can prohibit flood resistance improvements from increasing assessed value. A no vote maintains the status quo, which means that any flood resistance improvements could increase assessed value. Many home improvement projects ultimately increase the assessed value of a home, which means the homeowners pay higher property taxes. This amendment would allow the Florida legislature to pass laws that would make improvements intended to protect homes from flood damage exempt from higher assessments. The amendment is in response to the threat of Florida homes from rising sea levels.
Okay, so let's get, we're not very formal here.
That's okay.
Super plain speak. So I believe that we need to defend our community against climate change, and we do have to invest because we've made mistakes, and so damage is being. So if I support that kind of action, do I vote yes or no?
If you support, so it depends. Who are you? Kind of a weird way to word this, but who are you supporting here? The person who improves their home but doesn't want their assessed value to go up, or the
Yes.
central yes. Okay, so then you would vote yes. If you don't want your value to be increased based on changes you would make to your home to protect against floods.
Okay, is there any unintended consequences of my vote? Am I prejudicing, I don't know, am I prejudicing non-homeowners, or am I prejudicing people who can't afford to do the upgrades? Am I doing anything wrong by my yes vote?
Oh, sorry, buddy.
It's not doing something wrong, but it does, and I think I have, let me see if I have the exact number here. I don't. So there will be some taxes that won't be collected because the values won't go up, and that money in turn, not having it affects the county or the city, depending on where you are. Thinking about how many improvements will have to be done in the coming years, that's a big number. So it's really, what you feel is best for you. If you're thinking more what's best for the county, which gets reinvested into infrastructure, it's almost cyclical, right? Like that money might be invested in things that would help prevent floods, build streets a little higher, that type of thing. That money won't be there. So that's what you have to juggle here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it gets.
That's very helpful, because this was especially confusing to me.
Yeah, I see Ashley Zambrano has her hand up.
Yeah, so just quick question, kind of like to clarify. So if I would vote no for this, would that mean that the tax, like the taxes would go up, but that would be reinvested into our county?
Correct. Yeah. So any improvements you do, any flood resistant improvement would increase your value. So your taxes would go up. That money would go to the county. Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry, this is like a question and a statement. I assume that if we voted no and then the taxes were increased, there's no guarantee that that tax increase would go to do anything with helping the environmental impact of global warming.
That is correct.
Right.
That is correct.
And the second thing I was going to say is, if that homeowner who made the improvements, assuming that the yes wins and the homeowner made the improvement and doesn't get added taxes for making those improvements, there still is a possibility if that homeowner sells that home and and makes a point that they made these improvements, that at the sale of the home, the assessed value won't, may go up. Correct?
Yes, correct. So there's no assurance, because all this says is that the legislature can prohibit, not that
Right.
it will.
Right.
So there are no assurances there.
Right. And even though the taxes may not go up initially when somebody does an improvement, if we vote yes, when that homeowner sells that home, they may say to, as far as determining their price and raising the sale price of their house, could be because I made these improvements. So, and then if the assessed value if the homeowner sells the house at a much higher price because they made these improvements, then the county will tax off of that difference in the sale price from the previous sale price, correct?
Well, unless something is put into place by the legislature saying that it's not going to be factored into, or it can't raise, you know, new sale prices, which I don't know if that would ever happen.
Yeah, me either.
But this just allows the possibility for flood resistance improvements to not increase values. It doesn't provide any assurances.
Okay, thank you.
It just gives, yeah, no problem. It just gives the legislature the space to begin to explore what that might look like and put it into practice.
Okay, thank
You're welcome. Any other questions on this one? All right, so I am going to move on. Amendment 2 is to abolish the State Constitution Revision Commission. I talked about this very briefly at the beginning. A yes vote would eliminate the CRC, and that leaves only 4 ways for a constitutional amendment to get on the ballot. And a no vote maintains the state's CRC and ability to present amendments to voters. So let me talk a little bit more about what the CRC is. So the source of this proposed amendment is the Florida legislature. The proposal by the Constitution Revision Commission meets the commission meets every 20 years. The committee last met in 2017 to 2018, and CRC proposals do not have to meet any language limit or length criteria unless citizens' initiatives or legislative proposals require it to, and that's not the case right now. So they are not scheduled to meet again until 2037. The background to the Florida Constitution amendment process is that an amendment to Florida's Constitution can get on the ballot several ways, which we talked about a little bit before. And one of those mechanisms is the Florida Constitution revision. So those are 37 members who are appointed by the governor, and that's 15 commissioners. Legislative leaders, President of the Senate appoints 9 commissioners. Speaker of the House appoints 9 commissioners, and the Chief Justice of Florida, the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court appoints 3 commissioners. The commission is unique to Florida as the CRC refers constitutional amendments directly to the ballot for public vote. This amendment would abolish the Constitution Revision Commission entirely, which last met in 2017 and placed 8 amendments on the 2018 ballot. Several of the amendments bundled different proposals into one ballot. The League finds it important to note that this amendment comes after repeated attempts by the state legislature to significantly restrict Florida's citizen-led initiative process. Again, a yes vote on Amendment 2 would eliminate the Constitution Revision Commission, which was created in 1968 and meets every 20 years to consider changes to the state constitution. And it reduces the ways that a constitutional amendment can get on the ballot to just 4, through the legislature, a citizen-led initiative, constitutional convention, or the Taxation and Budget Reform Commission. A no vote on 2 would preserve the state's Constitution Revision Commission and its ability to present amendments to the voters every 20 years. Does anybody have any questions about this one? Yes, women's fund. Bob.
I think that's me, right?
Yes.
So who appoints, how do we know that the CRC is a fair and representative commission? Who appoints them?
So it's divided up into a couple of groups. So it's 37 that are 15 of which are appointed by the governor. 9 are appointed by the president of the Senate. The Speaker of the House appoints 9 of them, and the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court appoints 3 of them. Is that the fairest way?
No bipartisan or representative? No.
No.
So if you have a legislature that's, let's say, all one party, and you have a governor of that same party, that's sort of,
yeah, one could definitely argue that that is partisan, unfair. Yeah.
I have another question.
Sure.
So is this by voting yes to is it yes to abolish?
Yes
By
to
voting yes,
eliminate. Mhm.
right, yes to eliminate, is that
Right.
depriving the voters of more ability to change the constitution or decreasing it?
So it almost depends how you look at it. With these 4 mechanisms left, where a citizens initiative has more chances to be more visible because you've gone from 5 to 4, maybe it does increase fairness for the citizens. Or you can look at it as there's yet another mechanism that meets every 20 years
Mhm.
to propose changes to the state constitution. Is it more mechanisms that gives more opportunity for change, or is it that the citizens or the other mechanisms who might be more fair have more opportunity versus having 5 groups to change the constitution? It really depends how you look at it. Any other questions?
So
Yes,
I
I
have,
have a question, please.
oh, go
Sure.
ahead.
Hi, this is Karen Bieber. So, under yes, it says leaves only 4 ways for a constitutional amendment to get on the ballot. Only
Mhm.
4, meaning, and then you, of course, the Constitutional Revision Commission being the 5th, is that correct?
Yep. Mhm.
So they meet every 20 years. How frequently can the other 4 put something on the ballot? Every 4 years? I mean, does this have a restriction as to how frequently somebody can propose a change to the Constitution? Or it doesn't matter, it's still only every 20 years, it's just, are there 5 ways or 4 ways?
Right. No, they have the other 4 mechanisms have more opportunities, but I don't know the specifics of the increments for each one. But the other 4 have more opportunities to put things on more frequently than the CRC would. The CRC is, I personally think it's a huge gap, 20 years. So much happens in 20
Right.
years. So yes, the other 4 groups meet on this and propose things more frequently.
Okay, thank you.
I
I
have a
think somebody else. Sure, sure.
question. Sorry.
That's okay.
Does every proposed constitutional amendment get voted on by the general public?
I don't know. I don't know what the process is on whether it gets proposed and then it first goes through a legislative body or, whatever, and then comes to us. I don't know how that works.
Right. If that were the case, then it almost wouldn't matter how it got proposed as long as the general public had a say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any
Mika,
other questions?
we also have questions in the chat. Tish
Sure.
said, what are the 4 ways?
Sure. So the 4 other mechanisms, I assume that's what she meant.
Yes.
Hold on 1 second.
Can you type the 4 in the chat, please?
Let me just go back in the presentation. Hold on. So it's the legislator, citizens initiative, taxation and budget reform. And then the 4th one is on another slide. Let me know when you're done with this and then I'll move on.
That lists 4, so excluding the CRC would make it 3, right? Or am I missing something?
No. There's another one that was omitted from the slide by mistake,
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah. And then the 5th one is constitutional conventions called for by citizens.
Well, Sí, pero puedo hablar.
All right, I see that that's in the chat, so I'm going to go back to the slide we were talking about.
And
Does any, sorry.
will you be discussing candidates, judges, or only amendments?
So here, it's only going to be amendments, but we do have on Vote 411, which is our voter guide, so to speak, a lot of resources on the judges and the individual people, not only voting at, a county level, but municipality level. We don't get into each one because there are a lot of them, and it is based on municipality as well. Are there any more questions on this amendment?
Millie said, you said CRC is unique to Florida. Do
Yes.
other states have similar programs, or why is Florida the only state to have this commission? Sorry if this is outside the scope, just trying to understand the pros and cons.
Sure. So, it's a great question. I think what they mean by, I don't know this for sure though, admittedly, what they mean by the CRC being unique to Florida is that the way the people on the CRC are appointed is unique. The fact that they meet every 20 years is unique. And the number of people on the commission is unique. I think, I know that other states have similar bodies, but in those details, they differ. I see somebody asked, how often do number 3 and number 4 meet? I don't know that, but I do know it's more frequently than every 20 years. Where can we find that guide? So at the end of this presentation, I'm going to put in some websites that are resources, Vote 411, the League of Women Voters, Miami-Dade County. We have our positions on these amendments in case, you were curious about that on the website. So I'll list that here as well. And then I'll also put the extension to our Facebook page where we have recorded some Decode the Ballots, and they're posted in case you wanted to come back and refer to one of the recordings. So Veronica, I hope that answers your question. And I think that's all of them in the chat. So I'm going to move on to the next one if nobody else has any other questions. All right, Amendment 3. New homestead exemption of up to $50,000 for certain public service employees. Voting yes would reduce our tax revenue, and voting no retains current tax exemptions. So a quick summary of this, this amendment would authorize the state legislature to create a new $50,000 homestead exemption for certain public service employees, including classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, emergency medical techs, paramedics, child welfare service professionals, active duty members of the United States Armed Forces, and members of the Florida National Guard. Florida Statute 196.077 defines classroom teachers as full-time staff members assigned the professional activity of instructing K through 12 students in courses and classroom situations, including basic instruction, exceptional student education, and career education. The exemption means property owners in these professions can subtract $50,000 from the assessed value of their property, which will reduce their local property tax bills. The exemption would be in addition to the standard $50,000 homestead exemptions Floridians already receive on their primary residence. The new exemption would not apply to assessments for school taxes. The Florida State Legislature has already passed a companion bill, HB 1563, that if the constitutional amendment is passed by 60% of Florida voters, will create the new exemption and make it effective on January 1st, 2023. A yes vote on 3 would allow the legislature to create a new homestead exemption up to $50,000 for people in certain public service professions. exclude the exemption from assessments for school property taxes, cost local governments $87.9 million in lost revenue for fiscal year 23-24, growing to 96 million in fiscal year 26-27. The state would make up for the losses in Florida's 29 fiscally constrained counties, primarily rural counties in the Panhandle and South Florida.
¿Quieres ver esto, ñaño? Es una revisión de lo que hay que votar.
Can everybody go on mute if you're not speaking? If you don't have a question, please. Thank you.
Thank you. For information on how this amendment might affect your local revenues, call your local tax collector. Again, this takes effect January 1st, 2023. A no vote on Amendment 3 would reject giving lawmakers the ability to create a new $50,000 homestead exemption for certain public service occupations, have no effect on property tax revenue collected by local governments, and render moot the bill that would have created the new homestead exemption if the amendment had passed. Does anybody have any questions on this one?
I'm going to say something more than ask a question. We had hoped
Sure.
that early child educators, so people known as child care workers or people who worked taking care of our babies, so everybody else could go to work, would be included, but it doesn't sound like it was included in what you just read, right?
No, it doesn't sound like it. I think they've limited education to just K through 12, very kind of closed view of what that is. So it's not inclusive. I will say that. Yeah.
There are a lot of other professions that are left out of essential workers, right?
Yeah. And arguably some that would benefit most from this tax break. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, let me just check the chat to make sure. All right. And I think our president is on from the League of Women Voters. So Madison, I don't know if you want to add anything. If not, we will keep going.
I think you did a great job covering it. So thank you, Mika.
Thank you. All
I
right.
do have a last minute question. Sorry.
okay.
Is there anything in the amendment that talks about how, if at all,
Sorry, I think you dropped off at the end there. I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat
Treatment.
that, please?
is there anything in the amendment that discusses how it would be affected if, for example, a correctional officer or police officer gets found guilty of improper behavior or suspended or gets put on leave without pay or anything like that?
It doesn't, but if you were, let go completely, then you would no longer be a public service employee in the context that would allow you to reap this benefit. So, but in terms of suspensions and things like that, I'm not sure. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I just wanted to add regarding the early education. No, it's just public service workers would include K through 12 classroom teachers. So unfortunately, it's not early childhood education. And I think, with regards to these amendments, I know several people, across the board, have said, oh, if you're active duty, what happens if, you're in active duty for, the military and like you said, with law enforcement. And I think that's, sometimes some of these issues with these amendments, that the language is broad. And then once it gets passed, that's kind of when I guess the legislature, goes in there and kind of puts parameters in. So it's never, I guess, as clear cut, I feel like, as the public would like it to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, at this step, where people have those questions, usually it's not laid out as specifically as it would have to be if put into practice. All right, if there are no other questions on this one, I will move on. All right, so on to the county referendum. So the charter amendments creating local oath of office for county commissions and the county mayor. A yes vote requires county commissioners and the mayor to swear to support the Miami-Dade County Charter and the government of Miami-Dade County. A no leaves everything as it currently is. So to go into a little more detail about this, the Miami-Dade County Home Rule Amendment to the Florida State Constitution was adopted November 6, 1956, and the Miami-Dade County Home Rule Charter was adopted May 21st, 1957. A home rule charter is essentially a local constitution. It sets up the government structure and outlines its authority and its limitations. Home rule provides local control. It gives the county government the ability to craft ordinances and make decisions based on local needs, rather than having to follow a one-size-fits-all state code that's decided by state legislatures. So the ballot question is, shall the county charter be amended to require that county commissioners and the county mayor, upon taking office, swear or affirm that they will support, protect, and defend the Miami-Dade County Home Rule Charter and the government of Miami-Dade County? And so again, a yes vote on this referendum says that require that the county commissioners and the county mayor, upon taking office, swear or affirm that they will support, protect, and defend the Miami-Dade County Home Rule Charter and the government of Miami-Dade County. And a no vote would leave everything as it currently is. Currently, the mayor and the commissioners do not swear to support, protect, and defend the Home Rule Charter. Are there any questions on that?
I have one.
Sure.
Why wouldn't they swear? Why would they refrain from not swearing on that they would uphold the home rule charter? Why
That's
would
an
they?
excellent question. Madison, do you have any input on that one?
Yes. So the rationale for this coming out was, as you know, a lot of the state, Florida senators, as well as the state representatives, are term limited. So as a result, a lot of them have moved into county government. And I think this was just a way, to kind of protect the county and make sure that, whoever serves in the county government, is not influenced by Tallahassee. So that's kind of how it came about. It seems like common sense, but I think, it's just kind of another one of those, kind of ways to really reinforce and uphold Miami-Dade's charter. So I hope that clarifies.
It does. It's like it was one of those things that everybody just thought was common sense to do, but then as things surfaced, they realized they had to put it in print.
Yeah, it's almost like leaving it out just in case, like another way to, kind of just not be bound by something else.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any? Yeah.
Yeah, is there more to this backstory? Like, since the 1950s, why now? What happened who put this on the ballot and why? I mean, I totally understand, like, putting it into there so that you actually have to swear to it. But
Right.
What's a little bit like another sentence or two on the backstory? I understand what Madison was saying, but why now? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I personally don't know. I don't know if Madison knows why now. Madison?
Yeah, I think, just the concern was there's a lot of
Preemption from the state. Let me be naughtier because you're better.
to a degree, yes. And then I
Right?
guess, you have all of these former state officials who are now county commissioners, so I think, you know, they just want to make sure that, you know, whoever serves in the county commission is aligned with the county's needs and not the state's.
Yeah, it's about intention, I think. And I can only assume that more recently there's been a deviation between alignment or something like that. So it needed to be made explicit.
Okay.
I had a question regarding that as well.
Sure.
Kind of just from the other side, if this does get passed, and now I understand the intent. However, when I first read it, I did not get that at all. Is there any safeguard in place for if, for example, the people of Miami-Dade County are not in line with the commissioners and the mayor to date? Are they now required to follow that charter if there passes, or will the people have kind of like a say of, like, I feel like it should be an oath for the people as opposed to the government and the
Mhm.
charter. Is there any sort of safeguard to stop the other side from, you know, one way or another taking over?
Not that I know of, but I don't know how the county charter is established, if there's any input from constituents. Because if there is, one could view that as a mechanism to have the voice of the people influence the county charter. I don't know how that's put together.
I will say one thing, you know, the county does have its own charter review process, very similar to the state. So that is one way, you know, citizens can get involved and they can, you know, make sure that their voices are heard with regards to the charter review task force.
Thank you, Madison. If there are no more questions, I will continue. All right, referendum 2. This is a charter amendment requiring voter approval for changes to governing structure of county transportation assets. A yes vote would amend the charter for the board of the county commissioners to transfer ownership of certain transportation assets. And it must be approved by a majority vote at the next available general election. A no would leave everything as it currently is. This item is also about home rule charter. Specifically, the amendment would provide additional protections related to the ownership of county-owned and operated airport, seaport, and other transportation functions like the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority that lie wholly within Miami-Dade County. This proposal is in response to the state's attempts to abolish MDX for the state-run Greater Miami Expressway Authority, GMX. So the ballot question is, shall the charter be amended to provide that acts of the Board of County Commissioners to transfer ownership or governing authority of the Miami International Airport, Port of Miami, or Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, that they must be approved by the majority vote of the qualified electors in Miami-Dade County at the next available general election? A yes vote on this referendum means that the charter would be amended to provide that acts of the Board of County Commissioners to transfer ownership or governing authority of the Miami International Airport, Port of Miami, or Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, that they must be approved by a majority vote of the qualified electors in Miami-Dade County at the next available general election, and a no vote would maintain the status quo, which could leave transportation assets in Miami-Dade County vulnerable to state control. Any questions related to this one?
So we don't want it in state control, right?
I would venture to say no, for a lot of reasons, right? If it's in state control, closure, manipulation, alteration, we don't really have say over that. Also, the revenues of all of these, where are they going if it's under state control? How are those revenues affected and how they come to the county if it's under state control? There's a lot behind it that makes it scary that all of those things would be under state control.
So a no means more state control.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? I think this is probably the most direct referendum on this ballot. All right, moving on. The school board referendum. So this referendum is to approve ad valorem levy for teachers, instructional personnel, student safety, and security. A yes vote approves a tax increase from 0.75 million to 1 million on real estate taxes to raise teacher pay and improve school safety and security for public and charter schools. And a no vote means the current real estate tax increase that voters approved in 2018 would expire. So just a little more background on this. In 2018, voters approved a $0.75 million tax increase for ad valorem real estate taxes to increase teacher pay for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Currently, teachers receive supplements up to 28.97% for the referendum funds. It is set to expire unless voters pass this referendum. All public schools, both Miami-Dade County Public Schools and charter schools, will share the revenue proportionate to the school student enrollment. By state statute, all referendums moving forward must include charter schools. Millage, or the mill rate, is a term localities use to calculate property tax liability. Property tax itself is sometimes referred to as millage tax. A million is 1/1000th of, or a mil, sorry, is 1/1000th of a dollar, and in property tax terms is equal to $1 of tax for each $1,000 of assessment. So a yes vote on the school board referendum would approve a tax increase from 0.75 million to 1 million on real estate taxes to raise teacher pay and improve school safety and security for public schools and charter schools beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2027. A no vote means the current real estate tax increase that voters approved in 2018 would expire. If the renewal does not pass, teachers and instructional personnel salaries could be cut. The school district would have to reallocate funding to provide police protection at every school. Are there any questions on this one? All right, I will move on to the last one, or one of our last slides. So there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote by mail, and the deadline to request a vote by mail ballot is Saturday, October 29th, 2019. So that's this Saturday. And the deadline to return a vote by mail ballot is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Early voting begins today. Yay. Monday, October 24th, 2022. And runs through Sunday, November 6th, 2022. And election day is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. So this is one of the resources I brought up earlier in this presentation. Vote 411 has everything you need to know about elections, including your personalized voter guides in both English and Spanish. I think you can type in your address and then your specific ballot will appear so that you can kind of plan how to answer the ballot questions, what's on your specific one, which candidates are there, so you can research them a little bit. This is a very valuable tool. And I believe the website for it is vote411.org, which I will type into the chat at the end of this presentation. Are there any questions? All right, thank you everyone for having me. Thank you, Madison, for supporting this presentation. She really did a lot to try to make the information on this presentation as full as possible. So thank you very much. I just want to ask one last time, any questions?
I just want to say thanks. It was very helpful.
Awesome. I see
You
the
all
chat.
so much. I have to go to a board meeting, but I will let Kami close up for me. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much,
having
Mika.
us. And thank you to the Women's Fund. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I already dropped the links in the chat for vote 411 and also the League of Women Voters Decode the Ballot resources. So get out the
Thank you so
vote
much.
and early vote.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you. Oh,